Good evening, sir.
Yo, yo, yo. This is episode 46 of the Beef and Bitcoin podcast with your host, Brett and CH. Today's topics: Satoshi, one of my favorite words, has been added to the dictionary. Love it. We got mining coming back to the USA, which is always nice to hear. And I wanted to talk a little bit about stablecoins as a product because Joe Kernan had an interesting conversation with Facebook's David Marcus this past week, and we're going to play two quick clips about that. So I think that's definitely worthwhile talking about. But how you doing this week, man? It's Thursday already.
Yeah, it is already Thursday. It's pretty crazy. I'm doing good. It's just another week, and it just feels like as we talk about, I'm always excited for like the week. Obviously Bitcoin's still moving on the weekends, but during the week, I'm always just curious what's going on. There's so many things going on macro-wise right now. It always makes for an interesting time. And I'm talking like not even just geopolitics in general. You get Hong Kong, you get the Middle East right now with Syria, and the Kurds and Turkey. So, there's a lot going on.
Oh yeah, and all that's really interesting when you just think about sanctions and stuff like that. And, that's just a totally different topic, but it just has so much to do with Bitcoin when you talk about excluding other nations, whether they're good actors, bad actors or not. You exclude them from the financial system, and, what do you do in that case?
Yeah, it's Bitcoin has changed the game in a sense that you can now transfer value across borders, on a private system, and then also obviously crypto in general has, shitcoins or not. It's the whole thing has all of a sudden this magic internet money, and out of nowhere, and not to get in that whole macro thing, but does this have to do with the whole 2008 people losing complete faith in the system, and then on top of that all the quantitative easing and free money in the system, and now you just have skyrocketing asset prices.
Oh yeah, that's that's a pretty common narrative, I think, talking about Bitcoin being born in the depths of the Great Recession, right? The global financial crisis, and Satoshi kind of saw this, intuitively knew, whether it was a study of Austrian economics or just history in general, to know that if humans are in control of the production of money, they're always going to inflate it to the point where there are negative impacts in the economy. So she was like, how do we kind of fix that and cap the supply and kind of algorithmically, boom, let it kind of just go into the ether and see if it survives. But that's the beauty of Bitcoin. And I think, to go into the topics, I think the fact that happened, and now today we're looking at something like Satoshi being added to the dictionary. It, on one hand, it seems like a fluff piece of news, like total doesn't matter. But at the same time, you're talking about just an open source computer software that all of a sudden now it is big enough and mainstream enough that the Oxford English Dictionary decides to add the word Satoshi to it. And this comes after adding Bitcoin to the dictionary in December 2014. So to me, I'm assuming the run-up, the pump of 2013 into 2014 may have had something to do with adding Bitcoin to the dictionary. They also added the word cryptocurrency just last quarter, but I think they did a pretty good job with the definition of Satoshi, so that if anybody decides they do want to look it up, they can. And it says the smallest monetary unit in the Bitcoin digital payment system, equal to 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. Yep. That's exactly what it is. They did a great job with the definition itself. But, what do you think? You think that's just indicative of Bitcoin becoming part of the norm and part of
Mainstream.
just mainstream culture, I guess?
Exactly. No, it's mainstream, and as you've talked about before, it's like kids who have been, born in the last, 5 to 10 years are going to grow up with, Bitcoin being a thing in their whole life. So how has that changed the narrative from going on forward? And, kind of just jumping into as we were talking about earlier, the biggest deal with Bitcoin, it's be able to send it across borders, and that's been huge, as you were just saying about sanctions. The mining part's huge too, because you can think about this: countries can mine their own Bitcoin, using lots of different, whether it's hydroelectric or other types of power, to mine Bitcoin. So that's a pretty big deal, and I wonder if there are countries doing that, and if so, what effect that will have in the future. I mean, obviously, hash rate goes up, but price wise too.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. I think we can kind of get into that as we talk about the mining coming back to the USA topic. But I don't wonder if when you take a look back and say, oh, I remember now in 2019 in October they added Satoshi to the dictionary. That was really cool to see. And then it's a year or two from now, what comes next? What else gets added to the dictionary? What else becomes part of the norm? And will we think and say, that was the when they added Satoshi to the dictionary, that should have really tipped us off that there was more to come. I don't know. What do you think?
I wonder if they added shitcoin to Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, I actually was hoping that they do add something like shitcoin to the dictionary.
Oh yes, it's there. A cryptocurrency of little to no value, usually a latecomer to Bitcoin craze, a copycat cryptocurrency.
That's pretty good.
And I'm gonna read the thing. There are so many shitcoins these days. Just stick to the classics. The new Bitcoin crypto is just another shitcoin. And I was just like, there's nothing. Oh, you read this one. There's nothing special about Ripple. It's a shitcoin. That's so people have added it. And it looks like the ones that have been added 2018. One was added August 12th, 2017. Wow.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's really early. Oh, there you go.
I think I'm glad you Googled that really quick, because I don't wonder if Urban Dictionary is more indicative of like reality. Okay, Oxford English Dictionary, add Satoshi. That's great. I'm thrilled that they did that. But it's very cool to see. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool to see that Urban Dictionary has shitcoin in it, and I don't. Yeah,
there's one from 2015. We got one here, 2015.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. It'll be exciting to see what else gets added. And I think, shitcoin, I guess, is probably my favorite word that Bitcoin has helped kind of meme into existence. And I don't wonder what the next ones will be. Like stacking sats clearly is a big kind of, I don't know, group of words, 2 words, but it's like, it's a common saying now. People are saying it, stack sats, stay humble. I bet you see stack sats or something like that in the Urban Dictionary eventually. I guess we could also just do it right now and get it over with. But
yeah, I'm just looking to see if there's an old cryptocurrency entries, just see when that came out. But I didn't see any that were besides 2014, which is old, but not that old.
Right.
For what I expect, like maybe 2011 or something like that. There's nothing in here. Look at that. No one's added it besides for 2014.
Interesting.
That's what it says here. I mean, there might be others, but I'm wonder where I'm gonna check Bitcoin just for fun. Let's see what that's at.
On Urban Dictionary?
Yeah. Let's see there's gotta be like an early one. There's 2013, 2011. I'm just curious now. 2017. The 2018 one, do something interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So the earliest so far for Urban Dictionary was 2011. All right, that's pretty good. Yeah. Early enough to. I don't know that I was lurking Urban Dictionary in 2011 looking for this kind of stuff, but if I would have came across it, that would have been great.
Would have been helpful.
What do you think? Should we roll into this mining in the USA?
Yeah.
So this one, this is interesting. I came across this, and it looks like Peter Thiel has backed Layer 1 Technologies, who is looking to be the first U.S.-based vertically integrated Bitcoin mining company. And I like that Peter Thiel has kind of jumped in here. We know that he thinks positively about Bitcoin. Doesn't say too much one way or another, but it's nice to kind of see him put his money where his mouth is, especially regarding something so important to Bitcoin infrastructure like mining. And I wanted to go into a couple more of these comments about layer one technologies, just because I think it's important to kind of just preface what they're backing right now. So their mission is to strengthen Bitcoin's decentralization and usage of renewable energy. And they're a team of industry veterans, and that includes founders from, if you remember, Genesis Mining, the cloud mining company that was very popular in 2017, and another one called Blockbase Group, which I actually hadn't heard of until I was reading this article. But I mean, it seems pretty legit. They already have a $200 million valuation. I think Peter Thiel may have put in like 50 million. I can't. I thought I saw that in passing, but I don't have 100% confirmation on that. And they also stated that they only wanted backers who believe Bitcoin is the single most transformational technology of the 21st century. And I thought that was an interesting choice of words, because while I definitely fall into that camp, you can see how having the wrong VC backers for a Bitcoin company, if you kind of want to operate in a certain way, them steering you down the, I don't know if the politically correct path is, I don't really know what I'm trying to say there, but, keeping it a little bit more cypherpunk, seeing it as a very transformational technology, kind of not give an inch on that part and let that fall into kind of bad hands. I don't know how else to explain it, but I thought that was an interesting thing to note. But one of the other things that I saw that was interesting, and I wanted to get your take on this, was it looks like they want to be vertically integrated. So what that means is that they want to both design their own ASIC chips and use their own designed liquid cooling mining containers to help keep the heat away. So I guess that would be like their competitive advantage. But they also want to procure and develop new and existing renewable energy. And they're going to be based out of Texas, which makes sense, right? I mean, they have fantastic energy prices there, and they're very friendly to
Business. Yeah.
from a regulatory standpoint, taxes. And I mean, they've got a shitload of renewable energy. I mean, I know we've talked about upstream data before, so you can pretty much strap on a mobile mining rig to at an oil field and take the excess energy, the venting or the flaring, and you can cap that and just boom, put a mining rig on there, and then there you go. You're using energy that would have been burned or wasted otherwise, and depending upon how you look at it, not necessarily great for the environment. And boom, you're literally just turning that into Bitcoin.
But you're making money.
Right. And all of a sudden you've made it profitable. So like, I love that it solves a problem and makes a ton of money. But I wanted to ask you what you thought about the vertical integration piece of being involved in the supply chain the whole way. So making your own chips, having a proprietary kind of liquid cooling container system, and then also doing the energy piece where you're procuring the energy.
I mean, obviously there's advantages to it. Having their own, I guess, proprietary pieces helps and stuff like that. But just, in a sense of, if you've ever seen like supply chains for like aircraft or cars, like there's tier one, tier two, tier three suppliers, it's a
Yep.
shit show. So you can imagine how much this reduces, all the issues. And then you think currently right now, when you think about, what's going on in China and the U.S. tensions and the trade war, companies, moving their supply chains and whatever. So, I mean, from that standpoint, okay, we know we can have all our parts and, we're not going to get disrupted, so we can keep making chips or, whatever they want to do.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of the tiering supplier example. I know Bitmain, they're one of the main suppliers of Bitcoin mining hardware to everyone basically, and they sell to themselves, I guess, and run their own farms and they contribute a lot to the hash rate, considerable amounts. Um, on one hand, when I'd first read this, and I was like, yeah, vertically integrated always sounds cool because you're in complete control of the supply chain. And if you think someone's not doing such a great job, let's say with chip design or chip quality, you can go ahead and just take that. Um, you can take over that function and you can supply yourself that. And my first thought was, I hope that they raised enough money because it sounds very expensive to design your own ASIC chips and then also design your be very good at procuring um, either doing R&D for renewable energies or just procuring that. It's almost like if you think about the specialization and division of labor, uh, be the best at just making efficient ASICs, or be the best at building liquid cooled mining containers, or be the best at procuring uh, renewable energy sources or whatever. So it's almost like it's three different businesses and they're combining them all into one. Uh, so that seems like it's a bit of a stretch. But on the other hand, if you're looking out and you say, well, I don't want to buy from Bitmain and I don't see a great liquid cooled product out there that I want to use right now, and I have great contacts because of Peter Thiel and whoever else in Texas that I can get on an oil field, then maybe you want to combine all three, right?
Yeah. Uh, this is just another interesting case for the U.S. here. More mining here, which is obviously good if you're a U.S. citizen. But I think it'll be interesting to see where mining goes in the next decade, especially as the halving approaches and supply dwindles. And so, what's that mean? Next.
Right, right. No, that's a good point, and I think I should have talked more about the importance of, I guess, bringing mining back to the USA, because right now you could make the assumption that the majority of the mining is happening in either China or very cool places where or stranded energy locations where you can just get cheap energy, right? Hydro or whatever. Um, for the decentralization of the network, it's good to see mining coming back to the USA. And I think you're right. Mining will be gigantic and probably one of the most competitive industries like you've just ever seen, because once ASICs and the hardware are kind of commoditized, it's really a game of who can get the cheapest electricity and be the most efficient running operation, right? It's the most competitive market we'll probably ever see. Um, and I think it's good because it will, bring a ton of jobs. And I think any country who is open-minded about that, yeah, it's just a no-brainer. Like all the tax revenue, all the jobs created, it's kind of brilliant. And I hope that this is a good start to uh, hopefully give Bitcoin a positive view. So if all of a sudden 10,000 jobs are created in Texas over the next 5 years, like other states are going to want to do that, right? And they're going to be friendly from a regulatory standpoint, maybe if they want more jobs, more tax revenue coming to their particular state, right?
Yeah, I was going to mention something, and I don't know the truth or validity behind this, but I remember one of my friends mentioning to me. I think it would have been in like 2016 sometime, mid to early 2016. Something about just like hedge funds that were just, and I'm pretty sure he said hedge funds that were just strictly just buying mining things and just mining the shit out of Bitcoin. Um, and I don't know the truth. Maybe I'll look it up after the episode, but I'm pretty sure that it would be pretty interesting if that was the case, which would make sense. I mean, they 10x easily their money, if not more. So,
Oh yeah. I mean,
and
2016 was a great time to get into mining, right? The hash rate was still so low that you could, and we were talking about this before we started recording, the like Genesis mining, the whole cloud mining thing was pretty big. And if you started using that in, I don't know, 2016 or in the very beginning of 2017 before the hash rate really took off, you were doing okay. That might have been a good use of, if you want to play around with $100 and see what happens. Like you earned a decent amount of Bitcoin, and then as we saw the hash rate just kind of explode in 2017, you might put in $100 at Genesis, and the estimated payback period was 6 months, and then 3 months later, you realize that that payback period all of a sudden moved to a year, and then another 3 months later, now it's moved to 2 years, and you never kind of made that $100 worth of Bitcoin back because both the price rose substantially and the hash rate just continued to increase. So your payback period just got longer and longer and longer. But yeah, I mean, if you started mining and any time before the hash rate really took off, like that was probably a good idea. You learned a lot, you had fun mining, you realized how loud ASICs are. I mean, and if any hedge funds were doing it, they learned a tremendous amount and probably crushed it.
Yeah, I mean, just on a hypothetical standpoint, when you look at when you look from like if you were just standing on like the trend line or like the price level of crypto and Bitcoin in 2016, you know, you just basically it's a giant wall that's in front of you. That's what it is.
Right.
It's literally what happened. I mean, you know, I don't know what the size of the market cap. It was it was like less than 100 billion. It was 17. Oh, that's what it was. It was like 17 billion, 18 billion at the start of the year.
Oh yeah, it was tiny.
Yeah, and it went to fucking 833 billion. It was ridiculous. So, yeah. I mean, that's, you know, when we
Right.
and I wonder what we're gonna look back at this in like what 5-10 years. We're gonna wonder, you know, how this played out in the whole scenario of what's going on in the macro right now. Like it's gonna be interesting to look back on that. You know, like
right,
our perspective coming into all this was through the fucking greatest retail bubble ever to exist.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, and then our, you know, progressing down into this macro path, whatever we're on right now, where we're looking at all the stuff and we're like, wait, what's going on here? And you look at it and you're like, and it's like, so how is this whole, you know, 2017 bubble going to play in to the whole of whatever plays out in the next, you know, in terms of geopolitics and the whole macro of things, where we are with equity markets, where we are with yields, you know, I wonder if,
and I think also, you know, where we are with currencies.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's where I wanted to jump into the stable coins kind of as a product topic. Were you looking something up?
Yeah, you can keep talking. I was just curious if they updated this.
Yeah,
it's something we should follow.
You know, so kind of transitioning into, you know, weird macro standpoint, and then where do currencies kind of fall, right? We've seen Turkey experience significant inflation over the last year, Argentina, and then you've also seen a currency collapse in Venezuela, right? The money just doesn't work there. It inflated hundreds and hundreds of thousands of %. And now you see Facebook talk about Libra, right? They want to have their own stable coin that is, it's just a basket of shit coins. And I wanted to talk about this because Joe from CNBC just did a quick couple minutes with David Marcus, and we'll play each one of those clips.
Is this the first one here, the minute 36 one?
No, the 2-minute one
because it came out earlier. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, the 2-minute ones. Why don't you go ahead and play that clip, and then we'll jump into some of this stuff.
Okay.
Plaguing so many people around the world,
which is a worthy goal. Digital transformation in banking and the unbanked. And everything else. And I'm starting to sort of understand that could be something that Libra could satisfy. But just seeing Andreessen Horowitz involved and thinking about Mark Andreessen and in his efforts in crypto, I was just wondering about you, David. Do you own any cryptocurrency currently? I mean, do you own any Bitcoin yourself?
I've said this for a long time. I started looking into Bitcoin since 2012, and I'm a big fan of Bitcoin and you know what I see as digital gold.
Totally different, I think, than
different.
Yeah,
yes.
And I can see that makes me more comfortable with the coexistence of Libra and Bitcoin, because you're not trying. You're obviously, that's the first thing I noticed. You're obviously not trying to do the same thing, because there's very few similarities between Libra and Bitcoin, and some of the things that the real Bitcoin advocates love about that technology, or whatever you want to call it, none of that seems to me to be present with Libra.
So look, if there was a stable, low volatility, scalable version of Bitcoin that we could use today, my life would be so much simpler. We could just focus on embedding that in the Calibra wallet.
As the as time goes by, in the words of Bogey or whomever that was, you think as time goes by it could become. I mean, the volatility may not always be like this, and they have a pretty good head start. It's 150 billion already. I think Libra is zero.
Well, that's absolutely true, but I believe that Bitcoin is like digital gold, and the problem is if you're a hard-working person here in the United States that sends money back home to support your family, and you send $100, and by the time people can get it out, it's $80, that's a huge problem. And that's why we have to take the hard way to try to build a very high-quality, stable digital asset for people to move money around at a fraction of the cost and to enable more people to be part of a modern financial system, which I believe we all have a duty to.
Yo, someone needs to meme the shit out of what Joe said about Libra being zero. That was the first time I watched that clip right there. That was fucking hilarious. I had to like hold in from not laughing. He's like, oh, Bitcoin's market cap 150 billion, Libra, zero.
Right. No, I mean, it's a good point. And, I liked watching that video. And one thing that was interesting, Joe liked that David called Bitcoin digital gold. And, that made him feel like there could be more room for both, right? To have this something that's a store of value and then to have something that's more of a medium of exchange. And although I don't know how I feel about that, I guess the question is, okay, Can both exist? And I think the answer is yes. But I also think that if you have something you have things that start competing as monies, one will always tend to dominate and just outcompete the other. And I started thinking about stable coins as a product when considering Venezuela's currency just collapsed, and then you and I talk about all the time, will the euro be around in 10 years? And I guess we both say it sounds unlikely, but who knows? We're wrong all the time. Is there demand for outside of Bitcoin for something else to kind of provide a product that is a stable coin? Although I think the term stable coin just doesn't make sense because it's always going to fluctuate relative to something else. But I don't know. What do you think about that?
So far, I feel like we've seen stable coins. Maybe, Tether's been, one that's been prominent, but not really in the use of anything besides being something for people to switch into on non-fiat exchanges, really, for the most part. I don't feel like people really hold Tether ever. They're either in cash or they're in, crypto or Bitcoin or whatever. And everything else, I feel like all these stable coins, like 2018 was definitely the stable coin.
Right.
None of them fucking exist anymore. I mean, we can look them up in CoinMarketCap, but they don't. Okay, that was the wrong word to say. They exist, but they're.
Yeah, I don't know what the demand is.
I don't really think there's that much demand for them. And some have gigantic market caps. So Tether's the fourth fucking crypto right now at 4 billion, according 4.1 billion, assuming we can trust fucking market cap.
Right. Or Tether, I guess, is the real thing that you need to be able to trust. I think.
Okay, make or die, 493 million, but the volume's $13 million. And
no one cares about it.
Exactly, and so that's nothing. No one's using it. No one's exchanging it.
Yeah, that's where I kind of get back to is there demand for such a thing? I think if currencies were failing all over the place, then there's demand for something else that could be used as money, right? To people to send back and forth. But no one's ever hit me up and said, "Hey, do you mind if I send you some Tether for splitting dinner?" You know what I mean? They're just gonna. I don't see it there yet, but that's not to say that it couldn't be. I think when I logically try to sit and think about it, it's like, okay, well, when would demand for a stablecoin increase? And I would use a stablecoin if I knew that the currency around me was either failing or being inflated, and you'd want to use something else. I don't know when. like, where does demand come from for that other than trading? People want to be able to go in and out, and that I can understand. There's a good use case for that, I suppose. Whether it needs a blockchain or not, it's all just a database to me. If there's no like proof of work behind it, like it's just entries in a database. It's like us using a fucking Google sheet to compare notes when we're talking on a podcast. That's just, we're all both using the same ledger, right? Yeah.
I was just gonna say Tether. It says 17.5 billion volume. I'm an idiot. Also, Maker is valued at $498. It's not the stablecoin. I think it's Maker DAI is the stablecoin, DAI. Yeah. But I looked at Maker and thought it was DAI, but it wasn't. But USDC coin, whatever the F that is, apparently has 161 million in volume. But I wonder, it's like what market cap, what market's in? Bitmart, IDCM, and then Binance is the big one. CoinEx. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if you can trust CoinMarketCap, as we learned. Who knows what the fuck's going on?
Oh yeah.
I mean, because like then it makes you question what the fuck is market cap for everything else. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I think
the volume, like, is Bitcoin's volume real here? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right. No, it's a good point. I think that's, going into can we confirm anything? We should probably play that second clip. And and Joe kind of gets into this though. What's behind Libra? I'll let you play that.
Philosophically, one of the criticisms and the reason that Libra in certain circles is sort of looked at not as favorably as some other crypto is that it's based on fiat. And what you were talking about being based on the dollar, that gives you the stability that you need to help with the unbanked. But I think they might make the point that stability also opens you up to the debasement of currencies that people worry about now that we're on QE4 and 17 trillion in negative debt. So it's a blessing and a curse to some extent that you're basically just tied to a currency that's going to be devalued by governments.
Well, I'm glad you bring this up, Joe. I think, this is definitely a view of a lot of the crypto community.
Maybe base it on Bitcoin, David, instead of basing it on the dollar. Then you wouldn't have the stability.
Yes, that's the problem. That's the problem. But I want to say one thing.
Okay.
The way that Libra is stabilized is by backing it to a basket of stable, low volatility currencies, and by committing to not move that reserve from a one-to-one fully backed reserve, and so never going into the land of fractional reserve and printing money.
I think Joe makes a good point.
The Swiss licensing regime that the Libra Association is looking into, and which FINMA is working on, would actually prevent the association from money creation, which I think is really an important point of one of the many concerns that.
Yeah, I was sorry. I was just seeing. I was gonna pull up. I realized it took off the video, but it was still playing the noise. My bad. I was gonna look up just because they were saying stable currencies. Just remember this is.
There's no such thing, right?
That's a stable currency. Just remember that. That's euro, US dollar. I mean, so yeah, just remember there's no such thing as stable. It's all illusion.
Right. No. I think that's a good point, and that was kind of the point Joe was getting to. So if you had 100 Libra
Joe was
tokens,
pissed. Joe wasn't taking his bullshit. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but Joe just sat back in his chair and was like, "Nah, man, I'm not gonna let this dude fucking just spew bullshit on CNBC," which I like.
Yeah, I mean, no, I like it too, and I think since Joe kind of is coming around to Bitcoin and understanding what it is from his perspective, he has a view of Bitcoin. So now he can look at other things and kind of call bullshit where he sees it. So he's saying, well, if you're calling this a stable coin and it's built of a basket of currencies that are continued to being devalued. So if you have 100 Libra tokens today, that same 100 Libra tokens or coins a year from now, most likely, since it's comprised of a basket of currencies that are being devalued over time, you're still going to lose purchasing power. So it's not like it's stable at all. And I think, just stablecoin is really, it's hypocritical. And the only reason I think that people think that one is necessary because you're in the middle of the monetization of another asset. So Bitcoin's volatility might seem like a con to someone who's dealing with all of the exchange rate risk, right? It's pretty volatile, blah, 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 blah. Over the long term, it's been a tremendous investment, but you can't expect something to go from no value to fully monetized in a very short period of time. And that volatility ends up being a good thing because, as we always say, price drives adoption. Nobody gives a shit about Bitcoin until it's pumping through the moon and your friends or whoever is around you is getting rich. And then that's kind of how something ends up being monetized in the long term. But in the meantime, everybody's looking for that other thing that you can use in the interim. And that's what I think Facebook's kind of going for. And they'll say, okay, well, we're going to already have a couple billion users. We can just throw a bunch of money in the bank and then create a token. And now, boom, Venmo, all this other stuff, cross-border remittances, Western Union, everything, they're done. Boom. Like, don't need you guys anymore. It just totally wipes that out. And I can't blame them for going after that. I understand why you'd want to do it. But then you have senators like Warren Davidson who are like, yeah, man, just use Bitcoin if you're going to do it, which is legit that he's even saying such a thing.
Yeah, no, I think, as we start to realize more and more, and we've been recording this podcast for almost a year now, more and more people are accepting to Bitcoin and crypto as a whole and accepting it's here. That as we talk about the cat's out of the bag, basically,
right,
type of thing. Like there's no turning back. Pandora's box has been opened, and where does this take us? Who knows? Like we're it's still quite. I mean, it's not early, but it still is early. I don't even know how you compare this to anything. You could say the internet, and you could say, oh, well, then technically, how would you put this compared to the internet? Could you say it's 1979 in the internet world? You know what I mean? Or like 1980?
Right.
To be but or where do you define the start? And it's one of those interesting things. Who knows?
Right. You only know in hindsight, I guess. Right. If it's 10 years from now and Bitcoin's a $100 trillion asset, we can be like, well, I guess that's how it happens. It takes 20 years for something to kind of spread across the internet and into culture where it becomes monetized, or nothing happens in 10 years and shows over. I don't think that's the case, but I don't know that there's anybody alive who can talk about the last time human beings saw the monetization of another asset. Like, it happened for gold over thousands of years, and then it was used for thousands of years as money, like globally. It wasn't that there was a big, centralized call where all the different countries were like, yeah, I think we should use gold. It kind of like everybody came to the same conclusion about using gold without having to talk to each other about it, which is a unique property of gold. And it makes you wonder, okay, what qualities did gold have that made it universally such a good money? And you can say, well, it's divisible, it's durable, it's high stock to flow, blah 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 blah. And now you're trying to apply those reasons why we think gold was subjectively used as money, and then can Bitcoin fill those shoes? I guess, and that's where we are now. But you don't know until after it's monetized, right?
Yeah, it's it's, as I keep saying, it's early.
Right, it's so early.
I think geopolitics is going to play into this whole. Obviously, I don't think it's playing into it all.
Right.
And we'll keep seeing, as we talked about probably on the more recent episodes. I think either 44 or 45 about Hong Kong local Bitcoin's volume spiking. I think that's going to be a continued trend as we see more governments confiscating stuff, or you're basically just and putting in martial law, which is pretty much going on in Hong Kong. I mean, Hong Kong's definitely in a recession. There's no arguing that now. I mean, there's nothing going. There's no tourism now. Businesses are shut down. So much stuff. And what's the consequences of that? It's a financial hub. So,
right, there are repercussions for sure.
Yeah, we'll see soon enough. And the real estate prices are through the roof too. Well, probably not anymore, but they were at some point.
Right. Maybe Hong Kong will be ground zero for us to kind of watch how it plays and see if that's like a leading indicator to other parts of the world.
could go on for hours about this, but I should probably stop talking now.
No, yeah, I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Yeah, that was episode 46. Thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure to leave us a review, comment, send us a DM, let us know what you want us to talk about. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, leave us a comment on YouTube, and get ready for episode 47 coming later next week.
And big macro things. It's all happening now.